They pulled over an old black man for a broken turn signal. They mocked his faded military jacket, laughed at his war stories like they were fiction. They thought he was just a tired, rambling old man. 30 minutes later, 3 unmarked SUVs from Homeland Security rolled up to the station. Federal agents walked in. No introductions, no questions. And suddenly, no one was laughing anymore. Who was the man they arrested? And why does the federal government treat him like a top-tier protected asset? Welcome to T&M Incredible Story. Let's uncover what really happened. The wind in Rock Valley that afternoon was the kind that carried dust and memory, dry, whispering, and indifferent. A rust-red Chevy pickup coasted down Pine Hill Road, its engine humming like a tired old dog that had seen better days. Behind the wheel sat a man who looked just as worn as the truck, dark-skinned, gray-bearded. Shoulders slightly hunched not from weakness, but from the quiet weight of experience. Leonard Leo McCall didn't drive fast. He never had. The world had taught him early on that speed only drew eyes. And eyes led to questions he didn't want to answer. His hands, large and veined, rested easy on the wheel. A military fatigue jacket, sun-faded and patched at the elbows, clung to his frame like it had grown there. Behind him, the flashing red and blue lights bloomed across the rearview mirror like a warning from another life. Leo sighed, pulled over, engine off. A cruiser rolled up behind him. 2 officers stepped out, young, clean uniforms, bulletproof confidence. Officer Peters was first to the window, hand perched on his belt, the other resting casually near his holster. "License and registration, sir," Peters said. Flat tone. Practiced authority. Leo turned his head slowly, carefully, eyes calm. "Yes, officer." His voice was gravel, coarse, low, and undisturbed. He handed over the documents without hesitation. The officer looked them over. "Tail lights busted," Peters said. "I know," Leo replied. "Got the part. Just haven't gotten around to it." From the passenger side, Officer Alvarez stepped closer, his hand hovering near his weapon like he expected something other than courtesy. "You military?" he asked, eyeing the jacket. Leo gave a single nod. "Army. Long time ago." "What unit?" "Didn't catch your name, officer," Leo replied. Not rude, just even. Peters raised an eyebrow. "Got something to hide?" Leo shook his head. "Only my patience." That was enough. Peters's expression shifted. "Pop the glove box," he ordered. Leo didn't move immediately. "Can I ask what you're looking for?" "Routine," Peters said. "There's a pistol in there. Registered. Military issue." Peters' posture stiffened. Alvarez tensed. "You didn't say that when we pulled you over." "You didn't ask." The air changed. Peters opened the door. "Out of the truck. Now." Leo stepped out slowly, palms open. "It's legal. I've had that sidearm since 1978. It's not loaded." They cuffed him anyway. The cuffs weren't rough, but they were unnecessary. Alvarez patted him down and pulled the permit from Leo's back pocket. "Clean," he muttered. Still, Peters gestured toward the cruiser. "Let's take him in." "For what?" "Suspicion. Non-disclosure. You know the drill." Leo didn't resist. He just looked out across the pine trees, like he was remembering something older than the road they stood on. "You boys ever been shot at while carrying a child on your back?" he asked quietly. Neither officer replied. They drove him to the station in silence. The road unspooled like an old film reel. Dust in the air, sky the color of worn denim. Leo said nothing more. He just sat, staring out the window, as if watching a different country pass by. And in a way, he was. The Rock Valley police station wasn't large. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the front desk smelled faintly of old coffee, and every door creaked like it had a memory of its own. As Officer Peters typed up the booking report, Alvarez leaned against the wall, tossing Leo's veteran ID card up and down like it was a toy. "Look at this," Alvarez smirked. "Army, huh? Bet he did KP duty and watched war movies." Across the room, Leonard McCall sat quietly in a holding cell, cuffed hands resting gently on his knees. He didn't look at them, didn't speak. The room's coldness didn't seem to bother him. He said something about carrying a kid during gunfire, Peters muttered. Probably trying to sound noble. "You know how these old guys are. They want to feel important again." Alvarez laughed. "Yeah, and I once flew Black Ops with the Avengers." The laughter echoed briefly, but it felt thin, like sound struggling in a space too small for mockery. From her desk near the front, Deputy Serena Delgado looked up, frowning slightly. She hadn't seen the stop. But something about the scene rubbed her wrong. She'd grown up with a grandfather who served in Vietnam. She'd heard that same quiet tone before, the kind that didn't brag, didn't shout. Just remembered. You guys even run his full ID yet? She asked. We're getting to it, Peters replied, waving her off. Delgado narrowed her eyes. You should have done that before putting him in a cell. Back in the holding room, Leo shifted slightly, as if his knees were reminding him of years crouched in jungle soil. He looked up at the ticking wall clock, then down again. Calm. Still. You know, he said suddenly, his voice cutting the silence like a scalpel, in 87. I was part of an extraction team in West Africa. We pulled 6 hostages out of a rebel camp. 2 of them were kids. Peters chuckled. Sure you did, Grandpa. Leo didn't react. One of the kids held onto my neck so tight. I couldn't breathe. But I kept running. That's the last time I cried. Not from pain. From weight. Silence. Alvarez blinked. His smile faltering just slightly. All right, okay. Enough bedtime stories. I don't tell stories, Leo said. I bury them. Then came the sound. A faint electronic chime from the station terminal. Not the usual beep for unpaid tickets or a flag plate. This was different, sharper. Red. Delgado turned to her screen. What the? Another alert. Then a phone rang. Line 4. The restricted line. Peters reached for it, but Delgado was faster. Rock Valley Station, this is Deputy Delgado. A pause. Then a voice, measured, firm, and federal. Do not release the man you have in temporary holding. Leonard McCall. Keep him secure. We're en route. Click. Delgado stared at the receiver. Peters raised an eyebrow. Was that? Before she could answer. The front windows lit up with the piercing glare of headlights. 3 unmarked black SUVs rolled to a smooth stop outside the building. Inside the cell, Leo McCall didn't even flinch. He simply exhaled. And for the first time since they brought him in, Officer Peters felt something shift in the air. Not fear, but the weight of not knowing who you're really dealing with. The door barely made a sound when it opened, but everyone heard it. A gust of cool outside air followed the first man in. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, and a federal badge clipped low on his belt like a whisper, not a warning. Behind him, 3 others followed, 2 agents in tactical black, and 1 woman with a laptop already open mid-step. Agent Elias Rowe, Department of Homeland Security. He didn't wait for permission, didn't ask for introductions. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Peter stepped forward, suddenly unsure of his own posture. We had him in for failure to disclose a firearm. His taillight was in. Where is Leonard McCall? Agent Rowe asked, already walking toward the holding wing. Alvarez moved to block his path. Hold on, we're in the middle of processing. You're done processing, Rowe said calmly. From this moment forward, you don't speak to him. You don't touch him. You don't log anything else about him. Am I clear? Alvarez's jaw tensed. Look, we didn't know who he... And that, Rowe said, turning to him for the first time, is exactly the problem. Behind him. Agent Naomi Chin had already plugged into the station's terminal. Her fingers flew across the keys. Pulling dashcam, bodycam, internal incident reports, she said. Full forensic duplication in progress. Delgado watched the scene unfold from her desk, stunned. She'd seen federal takeovers on TV. Never this fast. Never this cold. In the cell, Leo looked up. No surprise. No curiosity. Just recognition. Agent Rowe entered alone. Stopped just before the bars. He didn't speak like a man giving orders. He spoke like a man opening a door that had been locked for decades. Sergeant McCall. Leo stood slowly. The cuffs were gone, but the stiffness in his joints stayed. Took you long enough. Rowe nodded. Traffic through Denver's a mess. They shook hands. It wasn't formal. It was familiar. Rowe glanced back at the glass where Peters and Alvarez watched like boys who had kicked a hornet's nest too hard. They treat you like a suspect? Rowe asked. Leo shrugged. I've had worse. At least they didn't ask me what branch I served in 3 times. Chin's voice came from the other room, confirmed. Black level clearance. 4th Recon Division. Attached to Joint Shadow Ops until 1994. 8 international deployments under sealed authorization. Primary Insight Commander for Operation Waterglass. Delgado blinked. Waterglass? That's a ghost file. Thought it was decommissioned. Rowe turned to the others. You're not dealing with a veteran. You're dealing with a federal asset under classified protection. One of the last survivors of operations we don't even put on paper anymore. Peter stepped back, throat dry. We didn't know. No, Rose said. You didn't even try. Leo turned to face the glass fully now. He didn't raise his voice. You boys ever stop someone just because they looked like trouble? And maybe you tell yourself it's protocol, or training, or instinct. But deep down, you just assumed you were better. Peters didn't answer. Alvarez looked away. Leo nodded. Thought so. Rowe turned. We're leaving. Sergeant McCall has less than 20 minutes before this place shows up on watch lists from 5 different agencies. As they walked out, Delgado whispered, Sir, why would someone like him still be flagged after all these years? Rowe didn't stop. He just said, because not every war ends when the last shot is fired. And with that, Leonard McCall left the building, not as a suspect, not as a prisoner, but as a ghost who was never meant to be seen. The federal SUV moved in silence. No police chatter. No questions. Just the hum of reinforced tires on asphalt and the low rhythm of a nation's forgotten memory. Leonard McCall sat in the back seat beside Agent Rowe, staring out the tinted window. Behind them, Agent Chin reviewed encrypted files on a tablet, cross-checking names that hadn't been spoken aloud in decades. Rowe finally broke the silence. They didn't ask you about the gun. But I imagine that's not the first time you've been mishandled. Leo gave a tired half-smile. Mishandling's just a symptom. The real disease is forgetting. He adjusted the seatbelt slowly. His left shoulder resisting the movement, an old shrapnel wound from a mission he still dreamed about. Rowe glanced at him. You want to tell me what happened back there? Why you didn't identify yourself immediately? Leo looked out the window again. Because I wanted to see if anything's changed. A beat of silence passed between them. It hasn't, Leo added. But that's not news. 25 miles west of Rock Valley, in a secure DHS debriefing compound. They called it the Cold Room. A soundproof facility with bare walls and a single table bolted to the floor. Leo stood by the windowless wall while Agent Rowe paced slowly, a printed document in hand. You were in 15 Black Ops missions under the Ghost Unit, Rowe said, reading. No official records. 3 foreign governments still list you as Kia. And the only surviving photos of your team are still under Pentagon lock. Leo didn't move. Rowe continued. Your file was sealed in 1998. You were listed as non-active, non-traceable. And still. Leo said, a busted tail light brought it all back. Rowe looked up. You were there in Angola. 89. The embassy siege. I was. The sidearm. Leo nodded. That's the one. Issued before the fall of Luanda. I used it to keep 12 people alive. Rowe placed the file down. That weapon's still under classified evidence. Technically, it doesn't exist. Leo's gaze didn't waver. Neither did I. For 30 years. The room fell quiet. Then Rowe spoke, voice softer. You don't have to carry this anymore, Leo. Leo chuckled, a sound that was more breath than laughter. Rowe, I don't carry it. I am it. There's a difference. Back at Rock Valley Station, Officer Peters sat at his desk, watching body cam footage on loop. There he was, barking orders, tossing Leo's ID aside, smirking when Leo mentioned Africa, handing over the pistol like it was a trophy. Every second felt heavier now, every breath more labored. Deputy Delgado walked in, holding a printed sheet. Her voice was calm but firm. You know what this is? Peters didn't answer. It's McCall's field citation. Preservation of civilian life under active fire. Issued by the Joint Intelligence Bureau. Never made public. The Pentagon classified the mission under treaty security protocol. He stared at the paper. Delgado lowered her voice. You mocked a man who risked his life saving people whose names we'll never know. And you didn't even ask his name right. Outside, it began to snow. The first flakes of spring fell like the quiet return of something long overdue. Back in the cold room, Rowe looked at Leo one last time. We can place you in protection again. Different name. Different state. Off-grid. Leo shook his head. I'm not running. Then what do you want? Leo's answer came without pause. Respect. Not the kind you wear. The kind that makes a man hesitate before assuming he's got someone figured out. Rowe nodded. Then we'll make sure they remember. The ride back to the transition facility was quiet. This time, there was no need for escort vehicles or flashing lights. Leonard McCall had never been one for spectacle, and the agents knew better than to treat him like a symbol. Agent Rowe drove. The rain tapped gently against the windshield like it was knocking on history's door. Leo sat in the front passenger seat now, No longer the man in the back, no longer a suspect. Did you ever think, Roe asked suddenly, that maybe the reason they buried your story is because it was too real? Leo tilted his head. Truth makes people uncomfortable, especially when it comes from someone they forgot they needed. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a folded handkerchief. Inside, a silver pendant, dinted, tarnished, nearly colorless under the soft car light. Roe glanced at it. Dog tags. Leo nodded. Mine. And one other. Roe didn't ask who the second belonged to. He already knew the answer. At Rock Valley Station, 2 days later, the station hadn't changed, but the people inside had. Deputy Delgado was compiling an internal review. Peters was transferred to temporary desk duty. Alvarez hadn't spoken much since the agents left. The hallway that once buzzed with sarcasm now moved with quiet efficiency. And on the bulletin board in the staff break room, someone had pinned a quote. The price of forgetting is repeating. Unattributed. Elsewhere, at a private debrief location, Leo stood beside a table as Agent Naomi Chin handed him a sealed black envelope. Inside are the names of 5 active individuals from Ghost Unit, she said. You're the 6th. We've confirmed 2 have gone missing this year. Leo's jaw tightened. Someone's hunting us? Chin nodded. We believe so. Possibly a leaked list. Possibly intentional. Leo ran a callous finger along the edge of the envelope but didn't open it. You ever wonder if maybe they're not hunting us, just trying to erase the evidence we existed? Rose stepped in. We won't let that happen. Leo looked at him with a tired smile. Son, you're 30 years too late for promises, but not too late for action. Later that week, a letter arrives. Delgado opened her locker and found a plain white envelope addressed to her in careful handwriting. Inside, a note. I didn't speak much that night, but I saw who you were. People like you, the ones who notice without asking, are rare. Keep watching, keep questioning, and keep fighting for those the world forgets. Respect isn't a medal. It's a decision. L. McCall. She folded the letter slowly, hands shaking ever so slightly, not out of fear, but out of understanding. She wasn't the same deputy anymore. And that had everything to do with a man the world once filed away in the irrelevant pile. Final scene, the Resource Center. A week later, at a veteran outreach facility on the outskirts of Colorado Springs, Leo sat on a metal folding chair, sipping weak coffee and listening to the stories of men too young to carry so much. Across from him, a 28-year-old Marine named Julian spoke with twitchy fingers and darting eyes. 3 years back, and I still flinch at the sound of gravel under boots. It's like I never came home. Leo leaned forward, elbows on knees. That feeling? That's not trauma. That's memory doing its job. You don't get rid of it. You give it somewhere to rest. Julian nodded slowly. You think anyone ever understood what you carried? He asked. Leo looked down at the floor. They didn't need to. I understood it. That was enough. Behind him, a faded flag hung over the bulletin board. It had no stars left, just shadows where they used to be. The envelope was hand-delivered. No return address. No official seal. Just her name, Deputy Serena Delgado, written in a careful, upright script on heavy cream paper. The kind of handwriting you only saw from men who lived long enough to value permanence. Delgado stared at it for a long moment before sitting at her desk, carefully tearing it open. Inside, one folded sheet of thick stationery and a single photograph, black and white, grainy, showing 6 men in jungle fatigues crouched around a village map. In the center was Leonard McCall. His eyes were sharper then, but carried the same silence. She turned to the letter. Deputy Delgado. You didn't cuff me. You didn't question me. But you paid attention. That's not standard protocol. That's character. Most people don't see men like me until we're either gone or angry. You looked before that. And maybe that doesn't seem like much, but to someone like me, it's everything. I've seen the best men I've ever known die in silence. No recognition, no memorials, no thanks. Just faded records in rooms no one visits anymore. I carry them with me. Every day. Don't let their memory stop at me. Keep asking. Keep noticing. Keep being the kind of officer that people remember, not for what you enforce, but for what you understand. Because understanding? That's where justice begins. L. McCall. Delgado folded the letter slowly, pressing her fingers over the crease as if trying to hold the words in place. Her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her memory. 2 floors below. Internal Affairs Office. An official audit was underway. Body cam footage, radio logs, booking forms, the video of Peters laughing, Alvarez bagging the pistol without a warrant, the smirk, the silence, the missed questions. Each frame documented not just what they did, but what they didn't do. No apology could be filed, but the footage wouldn't disappear. Not this time. Back at the outreach center, Julian, young, jumpy, with haunted eyes, sat beside Leo on the back porch, where the mountains met the dusk. "I read about you," he said quietly. "Some blog posted part of the transcript from the station. Called you a living file, dot." Leo chuckled. "Is that what I am now?" Julian nodded. "Yeah, but to me, you're just someone who knows what it's like to carry things nobody wants to hear." Leo looked out at the sunset. "That's the burden, not the memories. The silence that comes after." Julian hesitated. "Do you think they'll ever understand us?" "No," Leo said. "But some of them will try." And that was enough. At the Rock Valley Memorial Wall, a month later, a new plaque had been added. Quietly. No press release. No unveiling ceremony. Just brushed steel, bolted into brick. Leonard McCall, 4th Recon. One of the last. Not forgotten. Delgado visited alone on a Sunday morning. She brought coffee, not flowers. She stood in silence for 5 minutes. Then she whispered, "I read your letter twice. I still hear it when I look at people." The road out of Colorado was quiet that morning. Dry pine needles danced along the edge of the asphalt. A few hours after sunrise, the outreach center's gate creaked open and an old pickup truck pulled out onto the two-lane highway. Behind the wheel, Leonard McCall. Alone. No escort. No camera. No destination anyone could confirm. Just the man, the truck, and a silence that had followed him for half a century. At Rock Valley Police Station, Officer Peters sat before a disciplinary board. Words like bias protocol failure, failure to verify federal ID, and unauthorized seizure of federal property echoed off the walls. He didn't argue. He just listened. And when the committee asked if he had anything to say, he responded with a single sentence. "I thought he was just a tired old man." They wrote it down as part of the official record. Meanwhile, Delgado received another letter, this time printed, not handwritten. It came from a veterans legal advocacy group. "Because of your report and transparency, multiple local stations are now being retrained on federal recognition procedures. Your name was included in the final review as a contributing party to systemic reform." At the bottom, a typed signature, Leonard McCall. In Washington, D.C., a file was unsealed just enough to leave a name behind. It wasn't labeled top secret anymore. It was marked relevant. Inside, a summary report from 1989, detailing a recon unit that evacuated civilians from an African capital under siege. The final note, scribbled in red. Survivors still trace their freedom back to one man. Codename, Spectre 4. Real name, Leonard McCall. 3 weeks later, in a high school auditorium, a young man in a gray hoodie stepped up to a podium during Veterans Week assembly. He pulled out a letter. "Read it aloud." It was from Julian. "There's a man who sat with me in silence while I remembered how to breathe. He didn't give me answers. He gave me space. And in that silence, I learned that some ghosts don't haunt you. They walk beside you until you learn how to walk again." The students didn't clap. They just stood up, one by one, in silence. Final scene, a bus stop outside El Paso, Texas. An elderly black man in a weathered fatigue jacket sat on the bench. His back straight, his gaze clear. Next to him, a teenager waited with earbuds in. Glanced at him once, then again. He'd seen that face. "Hey, were you?" Leo looked over. A faint smile. "I was a lot of things." The boy nodded. "Thanks. For whatever it was." Leo didn't answer. Just nodded once. The bus pulled up. The doors hissed open. Leo stood, walked forward, and paused just before stepping on. He looked back, not at the boy, not at the street, but at something far behind all of it. And then he whispered, not to be heard, but to be remembered. "They never really saw me. Until they had to." The bus pulled away. The bench remained. So did the memory. Epilogue. They thought Leonard McCall was just a tired old man. But the country learned too late that he had never been just anything. He was a wall of silence built by history, and a voice that finally broke through it.